Today I wanted to talk about my Book of Shadows. So obviously this is not the most Instagrammable edition of a Book of Shadows. Most of the time the ones you see people talk about and show off are the very fancy ones. They're gonna look like art. They're gonna be the gorgeous like leather work, and the interior is going to be something out of a fantasy novel. The reality is that not all of us witches want that and need practicality, which is when this bad boy comes into play. I've tried the fair share of trying to mimic those, and honestly for the most part this has been working, but there's just a few parts of the system that aren't, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. Things that are working: the actual thing itself. Having this be a 3-ring binder has been a lifesaver. This is a pretty big one, and honestly this is the best thing I've ever done, because I've tried the other versions and I've tried having different ones for different things. Don't like that. I've tried the like make it yourself. Didn't love it. And it kind of was the same reason I don't like the pre-made ones, because you cannot rearrange stuff and you also cannot easily take pages out. Now the one I made is pretty easy to take pages out of, not easy to put them in. The pre-made ones, as you start taking pages out, it does start to deal with the integrity of the like pages being bound and can cause problems. So honestly, I hate it because it changed my mind too much. So 3-ring binder has been the lifesaver. Plus this doesn't really get damaged that much. Even when you use it outside, it's 2 layers of plastic that you can just plop this open and like you're fine. We don't get a lot of rain and stuff here, so you don't have to worry about it like raining on your pages, but you could easily put page protectors and solve that problem. Personally, I just don't like the way those feel, and it's really hard to flip through your book that way. I have tried it, but that is something that I don't like. Something I have added into my book is this. So this is a little pocket that I bought just at the grocery store, but I keep pens and stuff in here. I don't think, okay, it's at the very bottom. There's a pen in here. I need to restock it. But I like to keep a pen in here, and then if we ever take this traveling or whatever, like I took this for our wedding, you could put little stuff in here. So like crystals or a baggie of herbs or whatever that you don't want to get lost can live in here. The next thing that's working is my page divider. So this I bought off of Amazon. It has this cover sheet and then a huge list down the side. And while the system of that is working great, I love the dividers. This is a huge set. It has 31, so you have a lot of sections to choose from. However, it's the sections themselves I have to adjust. So first thing is that I have my daily tab ready to go at the front. I have 0 things in there, so obviously I need to use it more, and I don't know that I'm gonna keep it as a daily thing. I think I want to rename that as like regular use, because like maybe put like days of the week or something in there opposed to daily, because it's very rare that I have a lot of stuff that I do every single day. Most of the time it's gonna be like semi-regularly, so I think I'm like, the layout of this I think has to change. And with the next section I have the moons. Now initially I was just planning everything moon related to go in there, and in theory that sounds great, but in actuality I've learned, as I will probably mention throughout, I've decided I need a separate section of the experience with it and what I change as a different section, and just a running of what I'm doing, opposed to having it in various sections. Because as much as I would love to be like, oh look, I did the full moon here and the new moon here and blah blah blah, I would prefer to just be able to go here and have moon stuff. So I'm planning on revamping that a bit on Patreon. It's going to be implemented starting this month, and that is to start incorporating the zodiac, like the sun zodiac, not necessarily the moon right now, ironically, but the sun zodiac associated with the season that we're in and the full and the new moons. So like we're gonna have like the Pisces full moon because we're in the season of Pisces, and then I think it's still gonna be Pisces when the new moon comes around. So we'll have a new moon ritual for that and start filling that section with that, and then like the 8 phases of the moon and like magic to do with those and stuff like that I will have in the moon section, and like the Inner Temple of Witchcraft meditation to do for the moon, stuff like that I'm gonna keep in here, but I'm not gonna keep my experiences and like what I'm actually doing in there anymore. Next is how I organized the Wheel of the Year. I started with Samhain because like, of course, obviously. Reality is that I don't like that. I want to adjust it. I want Samhain to be last because it's the end of the year to start at Yule, which means I now have to change all of those. And same thing that I said with the moons for the Sabbats. This is just going to be information for the Sabbath, so recipes I want to do, crafts, rituals, stuff like that. I might even include lore, I haven't totally decided, but definitely those things are going to live in the Sabbath sections. Experiences and thoughts and things are going to be in the other. Then we have my section for like divination, so like tarot and the runes. And with the runes section is when I realized something else. So the beginning of it, I had started by printing off pages, and then about halfway through I switched to writing by hand, and I've realized I hate that for my reference pages. It's great, it's good for memory practice, but other than that, it's so hard to read because the lined pages, the pen bleeds through. And also, I don't like my handwriting. Like, it's easy to format things and then print it off than it is to try and guesstimate how your writing is gonna flow out. I think artists would have an easier time with that, but I'm not. I like the computer. The computer's a magical invention that makes my life easy. So the pages that I refer back to, I love when they're printed, and then if I need to change something, it's so easy to reprint with the adjustment to it, and then I just have, again, I talked about this, I don't even remember how long ago, but at one point I talked about how I organize it physically and digitally, and so since I have a digital book of shadows, I can just update it there, print it, add it into the physical book, and then move along. Next is my book notes section. I think I might end up getting rid of this. I haven't completely decided, because a little part of me would like to keep notes on the books that I have read, so that when I'm like, I don't remember that book, I would have a section for it, and I could go back to like my extended discussion notes that I have on Patreon, but have my own version in here. But honestly, I'd created that section for like, when I read a book and I'm like, ooh, that's a good idea, and then I just want to have it there. I never use that section, so I'm debating on just like annexing it completely. I also had a section for wedding, and honestly, I think I'm just gonna switch it into like life events because I don't know the next time I'm gonna need to reference like witchy wedding stuff, and honestly, it could almost fall into like the love spells section. I don't know, I feel like I'm not gonna need that section very much. But I also do want to keep it around. So I don't know if it's going to keep its own section or just like a miscellaneous stuff kind of a thing. I used to have a section for the Inner Temple of Witchcraft. I've since learned I just need a section for that series. And I want to print off the ones that I use often and keep in there. Otherwise, I don't need to write them all out, which I had initially started to do, and then I've realized like a lot of them I'm not ever going back to. So it's ones that I want to repeat that I'm going to keep in here. And this is the only section that I feel like I would want to possibly like split up and have in like the semi-regular section, or to have like its own dividers within it and like maybe put it at the end. So then it could be like inner temple stuff, outer temple, shadow temple, and then whatever the other ones are. Then I get into the section for my spell work. Honestly, these need to be redone because a lot of these I started to copy by hand, and again, I like these printed. I think that would be easier to reference to. Overall, for the most part, the sections are fine. I think I might need to add a couple here and there, but for the most part, it seems to be working very well. I like the idea of when I want to do a money spell, I can go to the prosperity, like, money spell thing. I also want to add one that's just, like, work related, because being self-employed, you tend to do, especially, like, magical people who run their own businesses, you typically have stuff that you do specifically for your business that like you're not going to talk about necessarily online, but you have your own spells and stuff and rituals that you do often to have its own section. And then of course I'm going to have a section in here that is for the journal entries, which is basically where I'm going to write down what I did, and that I want to keep handwritten. And so that's where when I want to analyze like my experience with a full moon ritual, or I did a reading or whatever, it's gonna live in here. And I haven't decided if I want to have a different section just for readings, because I do have a book that I currently keep them in, and it does fill up very fast. And so I'm debating that once that's full, I might switch over to having a section in here just for readings, and to just be like a reference to this page, and then move to the other section for readings and just keep those in their own little place. And then also I want to add in dreams. I've been keeping track of them for the last month on my phone, and while that's convenient, I think what I will eventually do is transfer them onto paper and then put them in here, because tracking your dreams is really interesting when you start to see patterns. I haven't figured out what they mean yet, but I see patterns constantly now and I'm like, but what does it mean? So obviously I want to continue that journey, and I think storing it in here would be the best option. So I'm gonna do another video along these lines talking about how I end up changing this stuff in a little bit, probably like within a week or so, to just show you how I've changed it. But I just wanted to talk about like what was working and what isn't working, because I think sometimes when you just see the pretties of the Book of Shadows and like how they're all organized and so pretty, and we don't get to see a lot of like working Book of Shadows that isn't like easily could just be pulled out of a fantasy film. It's just kind of nice to see how the real world looks and how sometimes you gotta change and adjust it. Whether my old system works better for you or you got something out of this and my crazy of changing it up, whatever, I hope it helps. Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.